Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. We're going to totally flip the script on how we look at health and weight. For decades, we've basically been told that getting healthy is just about having enough willpower. But today, we're diving into the fascinating science of why relying on this infinite pool of willpower is actually a total recipe for failure. And more importantly, we're going to see how we can design a foolproof behavioral system instead. Let's kick things off with a pretty provocative question. Why is it that you make your absolute worst eating choices at 8 p.m.? Think about it. You start the day strong, you grab a healthy breakfast, you have a totally sensible lunch, but by the time the evening rolls around, there you are, staring into the pantry, reaching for the chips. Well, the answer isn't a lack of moral fortitude. It's not a weakness. It's actually a fascinating quirk of human brain chemistry that every single one of us shares.
Which brings us to Section 1, the willpower myth. Why your brain is exhausted.
To figure out why our evening choices fall apart like that, we really have to look at the invisible forces that are just draining our cognitive battery all day long. The crucial point here is decision fatigue. Now, this is the decline in the quality of our decision-making as our cognitive abilities get worn out from making multiple choices. Willpower isn't a character trait, it's a finite resource. Every single choice you make, what to wear, how to reply to that email, what to grab for lunch, it literally chips away at your mental energy.
And this perfectly illustrates just how universal this whole phenomenon is. Barack Obama famously wore only gray or blue suits during his presidency. Why? Because he wanted to preserve his cognitive load for decisions that actually mattered. We see the exact same thing in the justice system. Studies on Israeli parole judges show they grant parole way less frequently later in the day, because when their brains get tired, they just fall back on the safest default option, which is denying parole. Well, your brain does the exact same thing. When you're mentally exhausted at night, your brain is just looking for a shortcut, so it defaults to the familiar, immediate gratification of junk food.
Moving right along to Section 2, designing your environment, the seafood diet.
Let's take a look at how our own kitchens might actually be secretly working against us. In this really shocking study out of Syracuse, researchers photographed hundreds of kitchen counters, and what they found was crazy. Leaving a box of breakfast cereal visibly out on the counter correlates to the average person weighing 20 pounds more than a neighbor who keeps it put away in the pantry. Cereal has this sort of health halo, right? But it's highly snackable. And soft drinks left on the counter. That correlated with a massive 25-pound weight increase. But check out the bottom row. Having a fruit bowl out correlates to weighing 13 pounds less. Basically, proximity and visibility completely dictate our reality. If we compare a lounge-friendly space to a slim-by-design space, the contrast is pretty stark. A lot of modern kitchens have TVs, iPads, and big, comfortable chairs. But here's the thing. Comfort actually invites mindless snacking. The longer you hang out in your kitchen, the more likely you are to eat. A slim-by-design kitchen uses earth tones. It hides the snacks in cupboards, and it encourages eating in a designated dining area. It physically moves you away from the food source. And you've got to consider this staggering statistic right here. 44%. Research actually shows that chaotic, messy, and cluttered environments increase our snack consumption by a massive 44%. Piles of mail, random gadgets, just general clutter, it literally stresses the brain out and triggers us to reach for comfort food. Honestly, just clearing your kitchen counters might be one of the best diets out there.
Okay, Section 3, the power of routine, making healthy eating automatic. Since we know our willpower drains super easily, let's explore how we can bypass decision fatigue entirely. This 12-week study reveals something that honestly goes against a lot of popular advice. People who ate an exact, repetitive diet, meaning they ate the same go-to meals over and over, actually lost significantly more weight. We're talking 5.9% of their body weight, compared to those who constantly varied their diets, who only lost 4.3%. The high-variety group had to constantly negotiate with themselves about what to eat, which just burned right through their willpower and led to caloric fluctuations. So we really need to flip the script here. We have to reframe dietary boredom not as some negative thing, but as an absolute cognitive superpower. By standardizing your meals, you drastically reduce your cognitive load. You're saving your mental energy for life's real stressors, your job, your family, your big goals, instead of wasting it debating what you're going to eat for lunch. Which takes us to Section 4, Keystone Habits for Success, Lessons from the National Weight Control Registry. If we look at the long-time losers, I mean that in the best way possible, the over 10,000 people in the National Weight Control Registry who have kept weight off for years, a really fascinating pattern emerges. A massive 90% of them exercise daily.
80% eat breakfast every single day, which helps regulate metabolism and stops you from overeating later. And 75% weigh themselves at least once a week to get that consistent feedback. These aren't just random acts, they are keystone habits that trigger a whole cascade of other really good choices throughout the day.
And timing matters just as much as what we eat. This brings us to chrononutrition. Studies show that aligning our food intake with our natural circadian rhythms significantly aids in weight management. Eating an early breakfast, having a midday meal, an early dinner, and then utilizing an extended fasting window overnight, it completely optimizes how our bodies burn calories. Your body processes food very differently at 8 a.m. than it does at 10 p.m.
And beautifully, these keystone habits are actually contagious. Research shows this incredible ripple effect. When one person in a household starts building these structured routines, 32% of untreated spouses, meaning they aren't even on a diet themselves, end up losing a clinically significant amount of weight too. They don't even have to try. They just benefit from the social proximity and the redesign of their shared environments.
All right, our final stop, Section 5, The Psychology of Change, Building an Architect's Guide to Habits.
Let's map out exactly how you can install these habits into your daily life. We can use what behavioral scientists call the habit stacking formula. Look, trying to force a brand new habit out of nowhere is incredibly hard. So instead, you piggyback a new health behavior right onto an automatic routine you already do every single day. You identify an existing neural anchor, like pouring your morning coffee, and then you use an if-then construct to attach the new behavior right to it. Here's how this actually builds out in the real world. Think about these super practical examples of habit stacking. After I close my laptop for lunch, I will do 10 push-ups. Or, after I enter the kitchen in the evening, I will lay out my gym clothes for tomorrow. But my personal favorite is this one. Immediately after putting the kids to bed, I will brush my teeth. That simple little act instantly shuts down late-night snacking, simply because you just don't want to have to brush your teeth twice. You know, standard diets often fail because they totally ignore our emotional distress. But by using tools from acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT, we can really manage the mental game. This involves acceptance, which is just making room for hunger or a craving to exist without feeling forced to actually act on it. It involves diffusion, labeling thoughts like, I ruined my diet, as just mental events, not absolute facts, and mindfulness, actually noticing our internal signals to pause that impulsivity. It detaches us from those rigid rules in the cycle of emotional eating.
Ultimately, this brilliant quote really summarizes the core takeaway of our entire explainer. Focus not on what you want to achieve, but on who you wish to become. Lasting change requires a total identity shift. It's not about saying, I want to lose 20 pounds. It's about saying, I'm the type of person who takes the stairs. I'm the type of person who prepares my environment for success. When your habits align with your identity, the resistance just fades away.
So, as you look at your kitchen right now, as you evaluate your daily routines, and as you think about your habits today, I want to leave you with one final deeply important question. Who do you want to become? Because once you decide that, you can literally design the architecture to make it happen.